This man is the most important journalist in our lifetimes, Julian Assange. He is one of the most truthful, one of the best men that any of us will ever have the fortune to listen to speak. They've got him banged up. He's been banged up in Belmarsh for over 3 years now. And he is entirely innocent of any crime. This is a tyrannical regime, the US imperial empire, trying to maintain their global hegemony and a global military presence. And they don't want anyone revealing the fact that they are committing war crimes every single day of our lives. And somehow they managed to keep it hushed up. But the only way that they can continue to keep it hushed up is by showing people that if anyone sees an American committing a war crime and tells that truth to the world, they will be killed. Can you get any more tyrannical than that? How much more tyranny do you want to see? He's an innocent man and a great journalist.
If Julian is extradited to the United States, it's really the end of a sense of real freedom. We can pretend, and some of us can imagine we have it, but we will no longer be able to seriously dissent. We will no longer have the right to know what governments do in our name.
As I said, it's everybody who does not want to wake up tomorrow in a state where it's become a crime to tell the truth. Because that's exactly the point we're at right now. This case, Julian Assange's case, is not really about Julian Assange. Yes, it affects him, obviously, more than anybody else. But it is about our right to know what governments are doing with the tax money they take from us and with the power we delegate to them. Because they want to keep that secret. And they want to punish you if you tell the public what's going on. If you know about the dirty secrets that do exist, and you know about the war crimes, the torture, about the corruption, and you inform the public about it, they'll call it espionage, and they'll try and sentence you and put you away for life. That is what criminalizing the truth looks like.
The CIA, the FBI, the NSA, they all want him. Why do they all want him?
Because he's a truth teller. He's a justice seeker. He's going to pull the cover, and has already pulled the veil of a whole lot of barbaric activities of those institutions. And the sad thing is, and this holds for Democratic administrations and Republican administrations, that it could be Obama or Bush or Trump, that when it comes to the war crimes committed in terms of dropping drones on innocent people or babies, or in terms of not wanting or providing cover-up for those crimes, that there's a consensus against my brother Assange of both parties. They don't want that kind of disclosure. And that's why what you're doing is so important, standing up with him. And that's why I always want my voice to be in solidarity with him in terms of his willingness to speak the truth, disclose the truth, and seek justice for all. You realize the crimes that had been revealed by WikiLeaks, there's been no accountability, no responsibility of anybody being in any way rendered a just treatment given the kind of crimes committed.
Julian and WikiLeaks exposed war crimes, torture, and all of this shenanigans that went on with Cablegate. But the Brits have, not just the U.S., but the Brits have a dog in this fight as well, because they too have been exposed. They were a participant in all of these crimes. There are people there, whether it be BAE, British Patrol, I don't know who, but there must be some entities there that would like to see Julian Assange silenced.
Well, yes, and not just Julian Assange silenced, but everyone silenced ever after, by virtue of the example that has been made of Julian Assange. That's true. Britain is a co-conspirator, co-accused of the 21st century's war crimes in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya, and in Yemen. We are co-criminals. You are the bigger criminal, obviously, but that's not a defense of the junior criminal. And when the junior criminal is committing her crimes in order to ingratiate herself to the bigger criminal, that doesn't make it better, it makes it worse.
All he's done is reveal to the whole world war crimes and misdemeanors by governments of all stripes, Russia, China, the United States, Assange is a journalist extraordinaire, impartial in revelations that condemn governments all around the world. It would appear it really will be up to the New York Times and all the other partners of Julian Assange in those WikiLeaks publications, the Washington Post, all those collaborators, because I know no subpoena has been issued to the Sulzberger family or Amazon retrospectively for owning the Washington Post, for printing the same things that Julian Assange is accused of doing based on the Espionage Act. Presumably it'll be up to them and to a much better turnout in the United States than there has been here in Britain as regards the seminal nature of this case and what it means for any national in anywhere, any place in the world who happens to get a video sent to them of U.S. soldiers murdering journalists via helicopter gunship.
The fact remains the U.S. and U.K. are really tightly coupled on this, behind the scenes, no doubt, and have been for quite a while. And they just want to make an example of them. They want to establish precedent of being able to, jack up a journalist who exposes the secrets of empire. And in this case, it's primarily the secrets of the U.S. empire. And it doesn't matter that they are war crimes. It doesn't matter that they reveal just incredibly egregious activities on the part of the U.S., who obviously doesn't want the public to know about it, even though all kinds of information has come out. And WikiLeaks certainly exposed some horrendous things that were done on behalf of the U.S. It's just, you can start listing the litany of war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Real quick, in terms of Julian, I don't think there's ever been a more abhorrent, illegal kind of attack by the U.S. government on a journalist in the history of our country. Craig can relate because the same thing happened to him. And I can relate because to some degree it's happening to me. Even though I'm a lawyer, I'm advocating, right, for a check on corporate power. Julian's advocating for a check on governmental abuse, on war crimes committed by the U.S. government. He's an innocent man. He's done nothing wrong. He did a lot right, and for that he's being retaliated against. But the extent of suffering that the U.S. government and its allies are trying to inflict on him is just unlike almost anything I've ever seen. And, what happened to me, it was tough as hell, man. It was painful to be stuck in my house in prison for almost 3 years for being a successful lawyer. But I cannot imagine what Julian must be going through in the harshest prison, the toughest prison in the UK. He's being tortured, as Nils Melzer pointed out in his report, UN Special Rapporteur on Torture. And of course, the fact the Biden administration is, indicted him on espionage. The case is crazy. But what it does show is the extent to which Julian was successful in his work as a journalist, as a publisher. It shows the extent to which the U.S. government is in decline. Any government that has to take those kinds of measures against a truth teller is feeling seriously insecure. It's significant abuse of power. And as in my case, I think the only way to really save Julian is for people to become aware of it, organize, and demand his freedom. You know, Joe Biden should be ashamed of himself, in my opinion. I mean, Barack Obama, for all his challenges and all his faults, at least refused to go in this direction. He recognized that what Julian did is the same thing the New York Times historically has done on multiple occasions to expose government abuse, including, for example, in a case having to do with the Pentagon Papers. You know, so this is just wrong. And, you know, what I believe my case and Julian's have in common, and maybe Craig's case as well, is we all have challenged entrenched interests of power that engage in corrupt practices. And when you become too visible doing that, this kind of thing tends to happen. And, you know, the point, obviously, is not only to silence those people doing it, but to intimidate others who might think about doing this kind of work. And we can't let that happen.
It's quite a remarkable thing that journalism is treated as espionage. I mean, it's astonishing. In terms of the normal linguistic understanding of what the word espionage means, there's no way anything he did was remotely espionage. And it's always, I mean, I myself have been both sides of this, because I published official secrets, and I was an ambassador, I was a government insider who leaked official secrets. In terms of being somebody who leaks official secrets, in my case about torture and extraordinary rendition, you're taking a moral stance, and you accept that you are breaking the law in order to take your moral stance, and you accept as part of that the risk you will go to jail. I mean, hopefully you won't, because hopefully the public interest of what you did might prevail. But for a whistleblower who leaks material, there's a risk you will go to jail. And of course, Chelsea Manning was appallingly treated for having revealed war crimes, but Chelsea Manning suffered for having leaked the material. But I mean, the material which I leaked was published by The Guardian. I would have been astonished if the editor of The Guardian had been jailed for having published what I leaked to The Guardian. That would have been incredible. I think everyone would have been astonished by that. It's the whistleblower who's taking on themselves the moral responsibility, not the journalist who publishes. And Julian is a journalist who published material that was leaked to them, and the idea that journalists are going to be prevented from ever publishing any information the government does not want you to know, no matter who gives it to them, no matter how true it is terrifying. All we will have left are official government mouthpieces, and not to be an official government mouthpiece will be a crime. That's what the future is if this prosecution of Julian Hull.
On the perception that the United States actually still allows free media, and that's been threatened at different times during your history, but you do have these constitutional protections that have been upheld by the courts time after time. And so what we're seeing here, I think, is this twin threat. One, does the First Amendment actually offer you these protections or not? As a writer or a journalist or a publisher or somebody with an opinion in the US, is that principle about to have a bulldozer driven through it? And the second one is it actually possible to conduct national security journalism, to talk about the actions of these agencies, to talk about war crimes, to publish what happens on the battlefields far from where I'm sitting, far from where you're sitting, to people living in towns that we couldn't point to on a map? Is it still possible to publish the reality or not? And that's, I think, one of the things that separates a democracy from purely authoritarian states. We have to protect that. Or for people who might be wondering what the deal is with Julian, after everything that has passed, he's being prosecuted for publications that happened in 2010 that were directly about the invasion of Iraq, the invasion of Afghanistan, the conduct of the US State Department, war crimes committed by the US government and its allies, including Australia. That is what this prosecution is. It is a straightforward threat to the First Amendment, to the ability of publishers to do their job, and redefining publishing as espionage is the most dangerous legal precedent that could possibly be set.
Because even though I thought I knew a lot about WikiLeaks, it's tough to keep up with everything that over the past decade or more they have revealed that really it is everything that Americans, but really citizens around the world should want to know about their governments. The governments are supposed to represent us. Like, that was part of the idea. And when you have a government, and that's why you decide to be a citizen of a nation, is to have them represent you. And so you want to know what they're doing in your name. And the truth is, we don't know anything. We don't know the war crimes going on around the world. We don't know the fraud going on within the banks. And WikiLeaks showed that to us. And that's why it was so dangerous. That's why Julian Assange is so dangerous to the powers that be. And, to go through some of these things, which, by the way, is not just America. It's countries around the world. He revealed videos of abuse in China. He revealed Russian, I believe, spying on their citizens. He revealed Australia had covered things up, which is his home country. He revealed stuff around the world. And it's not just America, but of course, some of the revelations about America were, of course, the war crimes that Chelsea Manning leaked through WikiLeaks. The collateral murder video is probably the most famous. The Afghanistan war logs, war crimes throughout Afghanistan, Deutsche Bank crimes, the Bilderberg meeting groups and minutes. What goes on in those Bilderberg groups, which are the richest people in the world getting together and deciding how they'd like to run things. The list goes on and on, the Bibles of Scientology or whatever they call them. So he really was just standing for transparency, that people had a right to know these things that impact their lives incredibly powerfully. And I think we absolutely do. And if there's one fact I want people to know about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, and most people don't know this because they bought into the propaganda of corporate media, but it's that WikiLeaks has never, ever, not once had to retract something. They've never gotten anything wrong. Everything they've put out has been true and accurate and flawless. And then you compare that to CNN or MSNBC or the New York Times, and they can't go 30 seconds without printing something that's provably false. So honestly, he is one of the most efficient and best publishers that has ever lived, and instead we've locked him up. We have nearly literally shot the messenger.
I think it speaks to what cheerleaders people are and how partisan they are, not principled. Because if you care about any of the things that people who hate Trump from the left claim to care about, you'd be grateful for collateral murder, for the video that exposed what happened in Iraq, because you, in theory, don't want war crimes. In theory, you oppose like the killing of civilians, the killing of journalists.
I would like to speak up on behalf of Julian Assange at every opportunity, but be on the lookout. Black Alliance for Peace, the International Month of Action Against AFRICOM. We have to close these military bases and these. And Democrats, by the way, one of the things they do is vote for these military budgets, $750 billion, 60% of all discretionary spending. So I'm also very proud to be on the board of the U.S. Peace Memorial Foundation. So all of these things are important in talking about Assange, because he revealed, and this is why they have beaten down on him so badly, he revealed U.S. war crimes. He is a political prisoner. He should be seen as such. Most 90% of what you're told about him is a lie. He is not a rapist. He is not a hacker. He is none of those things. And they hate him because he revealed the truths that they want to keep hidden.
When the state secrecy gets used not to protect the security of citizens, but to shield state criminality at the highest level in order to grant impunity to the institution which commit crimes. And this is why Julian Assange is in prison. This is why they want to destroy him. Because for the first time, Julian Assange has exposed, ripped a big hole in this secret power. And he has allowed to millions, billions of people to look at these dirty secrets of the secret power, you know? That's why they want to destroy him. They absolutely want to destroy. They want a bad hand.
Why is it so important, this case, to you, that Julian Assange does not be extradited to the U.S.?
For me, I think it sets a really scary precedent. I think that this is, you know, the United States is essentially seeking global jurisdiction over information and journalism, and that's really terrifying. And, you know, what Julian Assange and WikiLeaks offers us is extremely valuable. It makes journalism a science as much as possible. There's no conjecture. It's not some talking head giving their opinion about something or some panel, you know, yelling over each other. It's source documentation. It's verifiable evidence. It is 100% authenticated, and they've never got it wrong. There isn't a single news outlet or organization who has that same record. And I think that's an incredibly valuable thing to humanity. And the fact that he has exposed more war crimes and criminality from governments across the globe is something that we should all appreciate. People in power should not have the ability to do things in the darkness. They should be held to account. They should be under extreme scrutiny. And I think that's what WikiLeaks has really offered us. So to me, it's just, you know, I'm a free speech absolutist, and that also plays a part in it. But to me, this just really sets a dangerous precedent to, it's really about narrative management, and they want to be able to control the narrative and the dialogue. And I think that's a very dangerous hill to go down.